Hello everyone, my name is Hayley and welcome back to my channel. Back in November of last year, I decided to challenge myself to sit down and watch 10 Hulu originals and give my honest review of them. However, after trying to film this video 3 times my usual format and dealing with technical issues, I decided to go ahead and take a video essay approach to this topic. So go ahead and let me know how you feel about the video style in the comments below. With that out of the way, let's talk about Hulu. So part of what made me want to pursue this video is because honestly, I feel like Hulu's original content for the most part gets overlooked very easily in the huge world of streaming now. As a consumer, I had only heard of 2 or 3 of their pieces of original content over the years before setting out on this challenge, and it made me wonder, is no one talking about it because it isn't that good? Or does Hulu have some hidden gems that deserve some more attention? Well, I definitely have an answer to that question. Let's answer it, shall we? But before we begin, let's get a few things out of the way. I'm going to be ranking everything in order from my least favorite to my absolute favorite. I picked each original to watch based on recommendations from my viewers and reading summaries for each movie or show in the Hulu app. I did not watch any trailers or read any reviews before viewing anything I'm about to talk about. I want to stress everything in this video is my own personal opinion and experience, and I am by no means trying to attack anyone on the cast and crews of these productions regardless of how I may feel about them. Alrighty, enough chit chat. Let's get to ranking.
When you came to us, what did you find? Home.
I honestly don't know where to start with this one, you guys. I guess the best place I can start is, wow, what a boring outcome from an interesting concept that somehow lasted 3 seasons. So, I'm gonna be honest, this was the series that I was the least excited to check out, mainly because I was slightly interested when reading the summary in the Hulu app, but any real interest I had was definitely gone within the first 15 minutes of the second episode. Now, I want to stress, this show by no means is garbage. You could definitely do a lot worse than The Path, but then again, you could do a lot better. My biggest problem with this show, without a doubt, is the fact that it's extremely slow-paced. I was sitting there constantly checking my phone on the time because it felt like I had been sitting there for 2 hours when I had actually been only sitting there for 30 minutes. It's just agonizingly slow. I had a rule in the beginning of this challenge where for the TV shows I watched, I was going to watch at least the first season all the way through to give my full review before moving on. I, however, ended up quickly breaking that rule for this show because I could only get through the first episode and then the first 15 minutes of the second one before coming to the conclusion that this just wasn't for me. On a brighter note, in that hour and 15 minutes, my favorite part of what I did see was Aaron Paul's performance. He actually brought some interest to the story, and while it wasn't a lot, it was something. He really is great, and I'm sad I just don't vibe with this show because I wish I could stand it to see more of him. I thought the cinematography was great, the editing was pretty good, but the last issue I have may just be something really personal. Do you guys remember the teacher from the first season of Riverdale? You know, the one that had that relationship with Archie that the show creators tried to make seem cool and sexy? That teacher? Yeah, she's in this show. And yes, I know the actress isn't actually a creepy teacher, but God, I can't look at her without remembering everything that happened with her in Riverdale. I just can't. Hi, editing Hayley here. So I fucked up and I was just stupid and I didn't double check my work. So after some Googling, I figured out that these 2 women, the woman who plays the teacher on Riverdale and the lady who plays the wife in The Path, are not the same person. So I just want to clear that up. I should have double checked that. That was my bad. Also, please don't, I know I've already said this, but like, please don't attack either of these actresses, especially the lady who does play Miss Grundy. She was just an actress. She was just showing up, doing her job. The whole plot's on the producers. That's not her fault. She was just doing what she was told to do, so don't go after her. But yeah, I fucked up. They're not actually the same person, so I'm just an idiot. So wanted to clear that up. Thank you. Back to the video now. And with that, this show is last on my list due to it mainly being really boring, really slow, and just not that great. Maybe someone could enjoy this show, but that someone just isn't me. Anyways, moving on.
Ow.
Sorry. I'm not really sure how to do it with my hands, but I'm just gonna go ahead and use my mouth.
No, it's okay. You don't have to do that.
It's cool. I'm gonna go ahead. Stick it in my mouth.
Now, with this show, I was actually really intrigued from the beginning. A show featuring a woman of color and her journey into realizing she's actually bi. That sounded really cool, especially since we need more representation in the world of media. It was only a couple of episodes, and I thought I was about to discover a lovely hidden gem in the corners of the streaming world. Sadly, I was very mistaken about that. Don't get me wrong, my problem at all is not with the concept of the show, it's how the show is executed. Now, I couldn't find a whole lot of info about this show online other than 2 reviews and the trailer for it, but from what I could find, the show's lead actress was also in a directing and producing role for the show, and it seems as though it was based on her real life experiences, which, good on her for that. However, I think she would have been way better behind the camera than in front of it. I once again broke my full season rule with this show because while I had mixed feelings after watching the first episode, I ventured on because the parts that I did enjoy, I really ended up liking, and I hoped this good streak would continue. But then the actress would say something that would either come off as really weird or really cringy to me. I don't know, that could just be a me thing. But it was such a weird experience because one moment she'd be doing great, and then the next moment I'd be scratching my head wondering how we just took 5 steps back. Along with that, honestly, the side characters are very easily forgettable and boring. I got halfway through the second episode and then I stopped because I realized that I really just didn't care about anyone in this show, and I could barely care about the main character. And that's a huge problem to me. I would honestly only recommend checking out the pilot just so you guys can see what I'm talking about and so you can have your own thoughts and opinions to share about it. I have this ranked above the path because while there are boring parts to it, I was less bored and more intrigued, even with my short journey with this show. I wish I could have loved it, but I don't. Seriously though, if you are willing to sit through the pilot, let me know your thoughts down below so I can see how other people feel about it, because this show is just, honestly, it's just a weird, confusing mess. But again, moving on.
It's so amazing.
It's gonna be really, really good.
It's gonna be like the best year of our lives. Shuji! Get off AOL!
Oh boy, I can already feel the hate coming on from this one. You guys, Pen 15 was one of the series I was looking forward to the most on this list because I had heard literally nothing but great things about it. How it was funny, inventive, charming, and nostalgic. And I thought that I was going to fall in love with this show so hard, just as much as so many other people have. But sadly, that was very much not the case for me. And again, I want to preference, this is just my opinion, and I'm not trying to attack anyone on the show or anyone who loves the show. I think the main issue for me is the fact that maybe this type of humor just isn't for me. Pen 15 is a cringe comedy, so it's supposed to make you uncomfortable. That's where the humor comes from. And did I laugh at some parts? Yes, I did, but sadly, I was just way more uncomfortable than I was amused watching the episodes that I did. The first episode was easily my favorite. I was a little uncomfortable, but I did have a good laugh here and there. So I thought the second episode would be even better, but that is not at all what happened. If you're not familiar with Pen 15, it's about these 2 women who are best friends in real life reenacting their 13-year-old selves in their lives as middle schoolers in the year 2000, which is a really cool concept, I will say that. And it actually is the 2 best friends playing themselves on screen, which is honestly really cool and funny. However, watching these 2 grown women do some pretty weird shit just crossed that line for me personally of what was uncomfortably funny and just straight up uncomfortable. And this show was where I first broke my full season watch through rule because there's a scene in the first few minutes of the 3rd episode that was just way too much for me, and I decided that I just had to turn it off, which is really unfortunate because I wanted to love this show so badly, but I just can't. But I'm glad so many people do love this show. I'm glad these 2 women are not only enjoying portraying their friendship and all the weird parts of it, but that they're creating one of the most popular shows on Hulu. We need more women in leadership roles in creating media. So while this show isn't for me, I'm glad it exists for people who do love it. I hope they enjoy it and support it. Anyways, let's move on.
Someone burned down your house with you inside. Elena, do you know anyone that would do this?
This show is hard to talk about, mainly because there are things I absolutely love about it, and other things that I just don't understand for the life of me. After I finished this show, I thought at first that it was really great. However, after watching more of the better things in this list, I realized that while there are definitely amazing things in this show, there's also things that could have been amazing but just weren't. First though, let's talk about the lead actresses. I honestly had a very high expectations going into this series because I know just what Kerry Washington and Reese Witherspoon are capable of. These two women are some of the most talented and badass actresses in the industry, and I am not exaggerating when I say that. I was hoping that they would bring the heat to the series, and I'm happy to tell you that they absolutely do. I love the build-up in their relationship. I love how both the characters terrify me in different ways. It was easily one of my favorite parts of this show. I don't personally believe it was the best performance of their careers, but they both definitely gave great performances. I also love the aesthetic of this series. It takes place in a small town, and you truly feel like you're a part of this tight community when you're watching it. I love the editing, especially in the intro. I thought that was so well done. And despite the show not being higher on the list, this is easily one of my favorite soundtracks for a show I've heard in a long time. It's so good. But then we run into some issues. Now, I want to be transparent and tell you that I'm aware this miniseries is based off of a book, and a few other Hulu originals on this list are too. But I haven't read any of the books some of these originals are based on. Now, I tell you this because my main issue with this show is that I don't know what it's truly trying to be. And I say that because we go from so many focus points throughout this series. One episode, we're focusing on the moms. Then another episode, we're focusing on the teenagers. And it can just be a little too drastic of a change at times for me personally. Now, since I haven't read the book, I don't know if this was done on purpose to stick to the source material as closely as possible. But either way, I just have a hard time trying to figure out if this show knows what it is and who it's for. Is it for adults? Is it for teens? Who the fuck is this for? I really can't grasp that. Also, I feel like I'm in the minority on this, but Izzy was easily my favorite character in this series by far. While she's not perfect, she's the only one calling everyone out on their bullshit from literally the beginning to the end of this miniseries. Her story is compelling and inspiring, and for some reason, after doing research on this show, I'm seeing a lot of people hate her. Why? She's the youngest person in this show, and yet she's the most logical. How the fuck can you hate her? I'm getting off track, I'm sorry. But it's just frustrating because this show got so many things so right in so many places, but there's definitely things holding it back from being great. However, with that being said, I still think this show can be something a lot of people enjoy from many different viewpoints. While it's not at the top of my list, I do think people should give it a watch. If you do, let me know what you think down below. And off to the next one.
I'll bury you behind a Jiffy Lube, and my friends are gonna help me! We will not be doing that.
So this is the first movie on our list. I wasn't sure what kind of movie I was in for just by reading the description on the Hulu app. I'd heard nothing about this movie, and no one in my personal life had either. So when I sat down at 11 in the morning to watch this for the first time, I was shocked, confused, and surprisingly entertained. This movie is ridiculous, insane, and all over the place in a really good way. Don't get me wrong, it's not the Citizen Kane of Hulu originals, but honestly, this movie was so confusing and weird that it was fun, and the movie is aware of that, and I love it. I've seen a lot of people just rip this movie to shreds in reviews, and I can understand that this just won't be for everyone, but not every single movie that comes out has to be this artsy, mature thing the Oscars would just eat up. This movie is meant to just be a really good time for its viewers, and I think it definitely accomplishes that. With that being said, it definitely has its problems, and there are parts that are just a little too stupid at times, but honestly, this was just such a fun time to watch. The first time I watched this movie, I watched it twice in one day, again at 11 a.m., and after I was done with it, I immediately called my friends and I told them that they had to sit down and watch this movie with me, and that none of us could be sober when we watched it, because that was just gonna make this acid trip of a movie all the more fun to experience. If you enjoyed the insanity of Neighbors, then I think this movie will absolutely be up your alley. It definitely won't be for everyone, but if you're looking for a feel-good movie that's just weirder and crazier at every turn, I say go check this one out. And with that, on we go.
I ran into my ex last night.
So how was it? Seeing him.
You know that scene at the end of Braveheart where they rip all his entrails out and he's like, freedom! But it's like a positive thing, because he inspired his people or whatever?
Yeah.
like that, but without the silver lining.
So this was the last thing I ended up watching on my list, and I think it was the perfect way to end this challenge for me. This series is a modern take on the movie that came out in 2000. Now, while I haven't seen the original movie, I gotta tell you, I absolutely adore this series. Zoe Kravitz stars as Rob, and she's the main producer and creator behind this version, and you can tell just how much she cared about this series and how much effort she put into it. Her mom was in the original movie, so I think it's really cool that it all comes full circle with her. With that out of the way, the series in itself is such a fun ride. I love how we get to know Robin very easily and how we can tell what kind of person she is right away. I love the record store and that anyone who loves record shops could easily fall in love with the environment of this one. The side characters are honestly so great and so entertaining. The best part of this whole show for me, however, is the music. This is a music lovers series. Music plays a huge role in this show, and it's absolutely amazing how well each song fits the show and the characters alike. This almost became my favorite soundtrack on this whole list, but it got beat out by my top pick, which we'll get to in a bit. But with that being said, it still slaps, you guys. The top 5 of this list are things that are so fucking good, so I'm not saying by any means that this show is subpar at all by being at the number 5 position. It's just an amazingly immersive and fun experience that I think so many people would love. But before we move on, I gotta say one last thing. I sadly learned after ending my viewing of this show that Hulu unfortunately canceled it and we won't be getting a second season, which is not only a huge disappointment because of how great this show is, but also because of all the representation we have in this series. So much of Black culture is showcased, Black music, hell, it's just such a great way to have representation, and I don't understand why Hulu wouldn't promote this more and give it more attention. It's honestly really great, and it deserves all the praise that it gets. If anyone at Hulu is watching this, please bring this show back, we need it. And with that, we move on.
This is the state's case against Gypsy Rose Blanchard.
So, I have a little bit of a confession to make. I didn't watch this series for the first time for this video. This is the first Hulu original I ever personally saw back when it came out in 2019. But I honestly couldn't make this video in good conscience without talking about it because holy fuck, this is good. This is such a surprise to me because I honestly don't like a lot of horror content. Not that this is necessarily straight up horror or even the scariest thing I've ever seen, but it's definitely creepy and definitely a great show to binge through. The act is based off of the real life events of Gypsy Rose Blanchard and everything that she went through with her mom leading up to her mom's murder, and this series handles the story so well and captures the essence of its chilling backstory to such a great degree. With that being said, let's talk about Joey King and Patricia Arquette for a sec. Now, a lot of you might know Joey King from her role in the Kissing Booth movies on Netflix, and however you may feel about those movies, let me tell you, they don't do her acting ability justice at all. Joey King is not a good actress or a great actress, she is a phenomenal actress in this show. She truly becomes Gypsy. It's insane. I want to talk about it more, but I honestly want you guys to go see it for yourselves. I'm still so salty she didn't win her Emmy nomination for that year because she just blew this role out of the fucking water. Who I am happy that did win her Emmy nomination is her co-star Patricia Arquette. She also just becomes her role oh so effortlessly. It's amazing what these two women were capable of on screen, and I really hope you guys go check it out after you're done with this video. Oh my god, it's just so good. And this is only number 4, you guys. We have so many other great things to talk about, so let's get to it.
It's gonna be a beautiful wedding.
So this was one of the most heavily recommended things to me when I asked for suggestions on what to watch on my Instagram stories. And when I saw this in the Hulu app, I'll be honest, my first thought was, okay, I'll give it a shot. I didn't think that I was gonna be as obsessed with this movie as I personally am. Holy fuck, I am so sorry for ever doubting this movie. I was eating my own words watching it and enjoying every minute of it. Palm Springs is so brilliantly thought out, hilarious, and fun. Its plot is interesting without being overly complicated. Its humor is silly, but it's in good taste. It's hard for me to talk about this movie too much without giving spoilers, but I'll touch on what I can. Now, I was already a huge fan of Andy Samberg and The Lonely Island, so of course I loved him in this movie, but even if you're not the biggest fan of his, I'd recommend watching this movie and giving it a shot because my best friend absolutely can't stand Andy Samberg, but she loved him in this movie. Kristen Melody, who a lot of you may know from How I Met Your Mother, is in this, and her performance was so refreshingly great. She and Samberg have amazing chemistry and timing, and it really shows. The supporting cast is also really great. I remember each one of them, and they're part of the story, and I laugh every now and again when I remember something involving them from this movie. It's just so good, you guys. I've been recommending this movie left, right, and center. I am so sorry for ever doubting it because it's easily become one of my favorites. My friends loved it, my mom and her boyfriend loved it, and they sat through the whole thing. I can never get them to sit down and pay attention to a movie all the way through, but they enjoyed this movie from beginning to end. I hope that those of you who haven't seen it yet enjoy it too. Alright, we have 2 more to go.
Remember your scripture. Blessed are the meek.
And blessed are those who suffer for the cause of righteousness.
The Handmaid's Tale was the first Hulu series I had ever personally heard about back in 2017 when it premiered. I heard about it getting all these award nominations, winning awards, people talking about how absolutely great it is, and for whatever reason, I just never checked the series out until recently. And I'm so fucking mad at myself for waiting so long because The Handmaid's Tale is in its own other realm of amazing television. I feel like I'm not truly gonna do it justice with words, but I'll try my best. The Handmaid's Tale is an adaptation of Margaret Atwood's novel of the same name, and it takes the events of the book into modern day so uncomfortably realistically. And I say uncomfortably in the most positive way possible. Pen 15 is just uncomfortable in its own nature. The Handmaid's Tale makes you uncomfortable with a purpose. Seeing these women being treated like literal property, having their entire lives stripped away from them, not only sets the show up for an immersive and telling experience, but it also serves as a conversation starter about how we may not be that far away from a reality like this. While women have rights now more than ever, their rights are in jeopardy every day, and I could go on forever about how this show truly captures how important supporting women's rights is, the messages about race, sexuality, what it means to be a woman, and how the show does that near perfectly. With that being said, it does not shy away at all from the dark nature of the book. This is easily not only the darkest show on this list, but easily the darkest show I've personally ever seen in my life. But that darkness serves a purpose. With that being said, I wouldn't necessarily recommend turning this on for a fun date night or something to lift your spirits. There's other things in this list that would be perfect for that, but this show gets the message that it's going to be one hell of a trip straight out the gate. Also, in regards to dark content, the show talks a lot about things that affect women such as rape, sexual assault, genital mutilation, and plenty of other dark things, so I just want to put that in here as a cautionary warning to those it applies to. But again, the darkness in the series has a purpose. And it's not all darkness, there's sweet and honestly touching moments throughout the show as well. All these parts come together to create an absolutely addictive piece of modern art that's supported by its nearly perfect casting. Elizabeth Moss is at her absolute peak in this series. I know so many people loved her role in Mad Men, but god damn it, you completely forget she's acting in this show. You forget there's cameras and producers all around her. She becomes Offred. She is the character. She's not playing it. Now, with that all being said, while I absolutely love Moss's role, I gotta say, my favorite character by far is Nick. I absolutely adore him. I didn't think I was going to care about him as much as I do, but fuck me, man, I love him. Luke was also a very pleasant surprise of a character I ended up loving. I don't want to give spoilers in regards to him, but I was crying so much at a certain point in the first season. Some of you will know what I'm talking about. And of course, there's Moira. I already knew Samara Wiley was fantastic when I saw her in Orange is the New Black, but this is easily my favorite role of her career. And again, I don't want to give spoilers, but she just brings so much to this show, and I honestly should just make a whole video on this show alone. Just fuck. After I finished watching my whole list, I went right back to The Handmaid's Tale to watch season 2, and god damn it, it was also fantastic. I'm still working on season 3, and I know season 4 just ended, but I honestly can't wait to see more, and I'm so excited to see where Hulu takes it. This show is honestly something else, man. It's so fucking good. And yet, there's already something above it in my eyes.
I asked Rachel to the Debs today. You know, it's not romantic or anything, we're just
friends.
This is genuinely the biggest shock to me on this entire list. After reading the vague description on the Hulu app for the show, I wasn't sure if I was in for anything special. Turns out, I was half right. The show isn't just something special, and it certainly isn't boring. It's an absolute masterpiece. Normal People is an adaptation of the novel of the same name written by Sally Rooney. On the outside, this series may not seem that interesting. It may seem like just another slice of life type of show, or at least that's how I sadly perceived it before my viewing of it. Little did I know, I had stumbled upon one of the most beautiful pieces of art I have ever had the privilege to see in my life. I know for a fact I won't do this series justice with words, I just can't, but I will attempt to so that you guys can go see this magnificent series and experience all it has in store. Normal People captures the essence of young love in the world of today and how it can affect so many people. It does it in such a way that it feels like you're watching a beautiful indie film, but at the same time, you're experiencing the story right along with the characters. Marianne and Connell's relationship is truly something intimate to experience, even outside of the scenes where they're intimate with each other. Again, I don't want to give out spoilers, but I'll touch a few points where I can. Daisy Edgar-Jones and Paul Mescal's chemistry on screen is just unmeasurable and stunning to watch. I think they may have one of the most, if not the most, chemistry on screen between actors I've ever personally seen. And not even just with each other, the chemistry they have throughout the rest of the series with everything and everyone else around them is immaculate. The cinematography is just flat out gorgeous. The coloring and aesthetic of the series just fits. You know, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. It's perfection. And remember how I said High Fidelity soundtrack was beat out by my top pick? Yeah, that's because the soundtrack to this show is just absolutely remarkable. It was honestly a tough choice, but I had to give it to Normal People because it just makes this beautiful story all the more immersive and captivating. And the last point I'll touch on is that Normal People honestly came into my life at the perfect time. I'm not exaggerating in the slightest when I say that I was not the same person after finishing this show. This series is easily, without a doubt, in my top 5 favorite shows of all time. Hell, maybe even my top 3. It's a show that will change you, make you feel all kinds of emotions, and take you through one hell of a beautiful ride through Connell and Marianne's journey of falling in love. Again, I don't feel I can truly do this justice with words. I ask that if you could only watch one thing from this entire list, that you do yourself a favor and go watch Normal People. I can't recommend it enough. Normal People just got 4 Emmy nominations, including Paul Mescal for being nominated as Best Actor in a Limited Series or Movie, and I hope he wins, honestly, because he absolutely deserves the recognition. But even if he doesn't, this show is just such an enchanting and captivating genius masterpiece that I hope you all go check out and enjoy. And with that, there's my reviews of 10 Hulu originals. I'm really glad I challenged myself to do this because I was able to discover movies and TV shows I absolutely adore, and I was able to share my thoughts on everything with all of you. I want to do this again with more original content from streaming services. Like the next video I want to do is on Netflix originals, so leave a comment telling me what I should watch for that video, or go follow me on Instagram to keep an eye out for when I ask for the suggestions for that video. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I hope that if you watch anything I recommended today that you enjoy them. If you haven't yet, make sure to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell to make sure you get notified whenever I post a new video. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.